100s making a return to our forecast, plus an increasing risk of fire in Northern California. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods, and we're right back at it. After last week, we had that stretch of 100s. Now we've got another one on the way for this week, and that is going to be elevating this fire potential. We haven't seen this yet this year, where we're in that moderate risk zone throughout much of the Sacramento Valley, and then stretching towards the coast and just off to the west of the northern San Joaquin Valley. This is largely due to those warmer temperatures, occasional gusty winds, and the low humidity. We're already starting to dry out that fuel, so unfortunately, the risk of large fires is starting to become more and more likely, especially as we head through those dry summer months. Right now, our current energy release component, that's just a gauge to how likely it is we could see some of that extreme fire potential, is starting to become more elevated. We're right at 49% for the Sacramento Valley and the surrounding foothills. We'll be watching that number very closely, certainly, as we dig deeper into the summer. As far as our fire season comparison, you can see this is the latest statistics back on June 4th, that the year to date, at least the acreage is above last year at this point, as well as the 5-year running average. As far as the total fires, though, we're pretty close to last year at this point and slightly below that 5-year average to date. We'll be watching those numbers as well. Always good at this point, especially when we have the chance to do so, is to get that to-go bag ready, making sure we're taking care of people, pets, making sure our papers are secure, as well as having any prescriptions ready to go, and maybe a couple photos that you want to bring along as well in case you have to evacuate from your residence. As far as our excessive heat warning, like I said, we're right back into this excessive heat. This will start out mainly on Tuesday, last through Wednesday, through the central and northern part of the Sacramento Valley. We're right back to tracking heat illnesses, outdoor activities, limiting those, as well as the fire danger. Heat advisory in place for the Sacramento Valley, south of Yuba City, extending over towards the foothills and the coast at this point. That's going to be Tuesday into Wednesday as well. Temperatures just a little bit cooler than, say, the northern part of the valley. Activity timelines really important to keep in mind this time of year. You can certainly be outside. It's just how we manage being outside. The best time, if you want to do that morning exercise, get the pets out, or perhaps do some yard work, that's going to be before 10 a.m. After that time, it's more about limiting the time in the sun. If you have to be outdoors, just taking breaks, frequent breaks in the shade, and staying hydrated with plenty of water. After about 8:30, that's when we get to sunset, and it's back okay time to be outside again, if it's safe to do so, to exercise, as well as getting the pets out for that evening walk or jog. Our heat risk is largely going to be in play in that major risk category on Monday through the central and northern part of the Sacramento Valley, and then this will expand on Tuesday. By Wednesday, we're starting to shrink that zone just a little bit again as we start to pick up more of an onshore flow. That's going to reduce our heat risk into the end of the week. It comes back a little bit by the time we get into the start of the weekend. But again, the biggest risk days are going to be on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now, we're pretty much hitting some major benchmarks here in terms of those average first days. That being true for the first 90, 95, 100-degree day. As far as our first 105 day, that usually doesn't hit until right about the time we welcome in the 4th of July. And then the first 110 day is usually July 21st. Obviously, haven't hit those, but this is the time of year that we expect to see that extreme heat building back. How have we done so far? Well, June's off to a very warm start. So far, we've had 3 100-degree days for downtown Sacramento, and we're largely above average. We've had 6 days above average, 2 below. That's going to put our average today at 92.6 degrees for those highs. Average for the entire month of June is usually about 89 degrees. We're very much off to a warm start, and we're going to add to that as well. But June, surprisingly enough, the consecutive 100s in June, the record for downtown Sacramento is 9. So June 19th through the 27th back in 1981, we had 9 consecutive 100-degree days in June. This is all very much a reality and a possibility for the month of June. It's not that odd that we hit those 100s in the month of June. Highs for today so far, we haven't had the official word, but this is going to be pretty close to what we see. 80s to near 90 throughout the valley, 65 for San Francisco, and then 80s for much of the foothills and 70s up top for this year, where we've actually been tracking a few thunderstorms. So our high pressure ridge is building back, and that's what's going to keep us under this dome of really warm air across much of the west. Our weather risk outlook, as you can see, really elevates on Tuesday. That's going to be the hottest day with poor air quality developing in some pockets of the region. Wednesday, we're still near 100, but then by Thursday, we have cooler conditions, and we actually get back to near average with that nice breeze coming in. It's all about managing the heat, though. As you can see, we're preparing for what will be on Tuesday, the peak heat during right around 4 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. In the morning hours, we're starting off in the 60s, and that's why we really advise the best time to be outside is going to be during the morning hours. Our cooling savings, if you want to save some money during these stretches of heat, only using fans when in a room because they cool people, not rooms. Set your air conditioning to 78 degrees. You want to close those drapes and blinds as soon as the sun comes up. Don't let it heat your house. And, of course, don't use those big appliances in the afternoon. Especially after 4 o'clock until about 9. Using any appliances tends to heat up environments, as well as the peak rates that are in effect as well for many of the providers. So heat illnesses, kind of knowing the signs of heat exhaustion. Someone is thirsty, dizzy, nauseous, or they've got cool, clammy skin, sweating a lot. But when it goes up one level, that becomes heat stroke. That is a serious situation. You want to call 911. Seek emergency advice immediately. The person may have a headache, red, hot, dry skin, and no sweating. So those are two very different things, but one can turn into the next very quickly. Hot air, hotter sidewalks. If you're out there with your pets, this is why it's best to get out there in the morning hours before these air temperatures start to warm into the 90s, because the concrete can get well over 100 and the asphalt can be 155 degrees when the air temperature reaches 95 degrees. The poor pet's paws can't handle that. And car temps on a hot day. This is the time of year a lot of routines are changing, and can be a very vulnerable time for the unfortunate case of people or pets left behind. A really good tip that one of the emergency officials provided was leave something in the back seat when you're putting your kid or your pet or perhaps somebody in the back seat of a car. I want to make sure maybe a phone, a purse, something that you have to grab, a briefcase that you need to get as you exit the vehicle, because you can see how quickly those temperatures can become elevated in a car in a very short period of time. Hate to do those news stories on those. Our valley heat risk ahead. We're going to call for the major category Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We drop into the minor category on Thursday and Friday, but really need to be mindful of what we're looking at here. And again, major risk mostly through the central and northern part of the Sacramento Valley. We'll see that somewhat become a little bit less widespread on Wednesday. So that's some good news as we move deeper into the forecast and get a little closer to the weekend, which does include Father's Day. I know that. But the 100s are making a return. When we have those overnight lows that are staying warm, that's going to increase our vulnerability to some heat illnesses. And then obviously our fire danger, we talked about that increasing, and the air quality becoming a bit more on the unhealthy side, especially on Tuesday. Another place that people like to go to seek relief from some of this heat are beautiful waterways, but they are still very cold, and they're high, and they're fast in some places, especially where releases are happening. I did notice the American River below Folsom did get a little bit colder, and it's that time of year where those releases are happening. When they let out that water, it's from the lowest part of many times the lowest part of the reservoir, and that's going to be the coldest, densest water. So right near those reservoirs, right by that those rivers, it tends to get really cold at that point. Sierra and foothill waters vary depending on location. They're anywhere from about 35 to 60 degrees. And then the Lake Tahoe water temperature is starting to increase. We're almost to that 60-degree threshold. So perhaps the safer bet is to head to one of our reservoirs, which tend to be a little bit warmer. They don't have the cold water there at the top. The surface water tends to warm pretty quickly. So California Department of Water Resources issued this beautiful photo here. You can see Lake Oroville still full. Oh, it's just absolutely stunning. There's the release happening right there into the Feather River, which will eventually run out to Oroville and then make its way and connect to the Sacramento River. So all of this is kind of in conjunction. They all find their connection to the Sacramento River and eventually into the Delta. But the farther you head from those releases, the warmer the water temperature is. Anatomy high pressure. I want to go over this because it's the sinking warming air that is bringing us this stretch of heat. High pressure is sinking air. Sinking air dries and warms, and that also will lower the humidity, elevating the fire danger. It's also stable, so we're not going to find a whole lot of active weather in the valley, but we are going to be watching for the chance of showers and thunderstorms in the Sierra. And I'll show you how that is going to evolve. We saw a few areas of that Sunday afternoon in the northeast corner of California. Towards the Nevada border, the Oregon border. Under this ridge of high pressure, we're going to suppress that activity at least for the next couple of days. But then as that high starts to move off, we will see a slight chance of those thunderstorms returning Thursday evening. Something we watch as well is for the potential of lightning sparked fires. We've been seeing a few of these here and there, but due to the fact that we had a pretty decent late season snow and still some snow up in the Sierra, things aren't quite as risky as what it would otherwise be in, say, a prolonged period of drought up in the high country or even in through California. So that's some good news coming off of 2 really wet years here. Leaning warmer, though, in the extended forecast. All of this is pretty much in play for our extended forecast, unfortunately. So you can see the rundown here. Average number of days with a high of 100 plus degrees is 23. We're just kind of in the beginning stages of seeing these recurring 100s in the forecast. 105, we usually hit 6 days, and we usually have 1 day at 110 or above in the Sacramento region. So our mountain forecast does call for that slight chance of a thunderstorm coming in on Thursday. Outside of that, it's dry, it's warm Tuesday and Wednesday, highs in the low 80s. For the foothills, highs are going to be in the mid 90s both Tuesday and Wednesday. We should stay free from those thunderstorms, though. And for the coast, even toasty there. Tuesday, highs will be in the low 70s before starting to see some of that cooler weather come back around. 10-day forecast, well, the peak heat hits on Tuesday and Wednesday with highs in the 100s. And then we cool slightly. We're still above average Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, even into Sunday for Father's Day, high of 96. So it is going to be a warm one out there to celebrate all the dads. And then for Juneteenth next Wednesday, highs will be in the low 90s. Overall, this is a warmer than average weather forecast, which of course we will continue to bring you up to date on any of the changes that we see in that forecast with in-depth forecasts on our ABC 10 Plus app. We've got explainers, weather specials, including our new weather special, The Future of California's Water. Download it. It's free on Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV. We always like to put special content on there to broaden out the weather story.